Hey guys, welcome back. I wanted to make a quick video today since it is the 4th, and just some things I was thinking about today that I wanted to share with you guys. I've taken a while to put out even this video, and I really haven't put out much in quite a while, and that's because I'm working, thank God. I've been blessed with a great job. It's working great. I'm doing what I want to do, all of that kind of stuff. But it's taken up a lot of my time, so I don't have as much time to be making videos for you guys. And on top of that, I've started a second channel going over video stuff. So if you are into video making or even photography and you're kind of a beginner, I'll link it below so you guys can check it out if you'd like. But I am gonna, keep posting on this channel when I get time to, and hopefully put out some more videos and things like that. Another thing that I'm kind of working through is I like them to be like perfect, and I like to put a lot of effort to make them a certain quality, and I like, every video to get better as I do things. I want the next video to be better than my last one. So this video is kind of more of a vlog, to be honest. I'm just going to be talking with you guys a little bit about some of my thoughts right now and things going on with the 4th and everything, but I debated whether or not I should even do this video, because a lot of times I feel like if I can't make it a certain quality, put a bunch of B-roll in there, go to these different locations and do different shots and stuff like that, then I don't even want to make it. So that's also kind of, made it more difficult and slowed things down. But anyways, all of that out of the way, I wanted to chat a little bit about the 4th of July. I've got some mixed feelings on it, and I feel driven, I feel encouraged to actually share my view on the 4th with a lot of you. Obviously, you guys know I worked in government. A lot of my family has worked in government, and I have had this conversation with family members, and usually it ends with me getting accused of being un-American. So forewarned, there may be some triggering things in here, but hopefully you don't read too much into the details, things like that. It's really, just try to follow the points I'm going to make, and I'm probably going to turn comments off on this video just because I don't want there to be any arguing or anything like that. I just want to kind of share some of these things with you guys. All right, so thinking about the 4th, how we celebrate the 4th. Well, really, my family, we really don't do anything. We really don't celebrate the 4th, to be honest with you guys. But it's America's Independence Days when we, it's obviously there's Declaration of Independence, Revolution, all that happened, and then eventually that ended, and we were our own country after separating from Great Britain. And if any of you have looked into a lot of that history, I've gone back just because I was really trying to learn about rights and the Second Amendment. You'd know that certain things had to happen. We had to commit treason against the British government. We were, at the time, the colonies were British. That was their government. The Redcoats were their government officials, their politicians, their police, their whoever. They were the British government, and that was who they answered to. And so when I see the 4th of July celebrations these days, I've got mixed feelings on it, because there's a lot of times people are celebrating saying I've got all these freedoms, and yeah, well, we do have a lot of freedoms, but pretty much every freedom has been eroded and isn't even recognizable to what it used to be when the country was founded. And I could probably start mentioning some freedoms in here, and I'll mention one that you guys would be like, well, okay, let's draw a line there. That's too much freedom, basically. That's dangerous at that point. And that is the right to travel. You have to have a license, which is a tax for you, and permission slip from the government. You have to have a registration on your car, which is a tax for your car, to be able to put your car on a road, which they force you to pay for that road. And if you think they don't force you to pay for that road, just stop paying your taxes and see what happens. Is it a crime to not pay your taxes? So you either go to jail or you resist that and you get killed. So you have to pay these things, and they're going to say, hey, we're going to use this money to build a road that the general public can use. Okay, great. Except, hold on, you can't actually use it unless we register you with our government and you surrender rights to us, and you sign this document here saying that we can enforce state policy against you as if it were law, which is like your road vehicle codes and things like that. And then we have to register your car and all of these things. And in some places they're talking about there's gas tax, there's tax by mile now in California, or they're trying to put something like that into effect. And so there's a part of me that thinks like all these people are celebrating rights that they don't really have anymore. We've basically got glorified privileges, if you would. And there are so many things that didn't exist before our time, but that we're like, oh, how would society function without these things? Fishing licenses, hunting licenses, marriage licenses, birth certificates, social security cards. These are all relatively new things, like just in the 1900s and beyond were created. And in fact, roads have been around for ages. Roads have been around for a long time. Even motorized cars have been around for quite some time now. But, a lot of times roads were for horse and buggy, basically. And we have not seen the amount of regulation on roads and laws on roads. I shouldn't say laws. They're really policies and state regulation. They're not laws, but they're treated as if they're laws. And they're enforced. A code is enforced as if it were law. And you can't go on the road a single day. And I guarantee you, because I've looked at the vehicle code, you probably can't get on a road a single day and not be committing some sort of violation where you can get stopped. There's 20,000 reasons in a code book on why the police can stop you. And you don't have, the big thing is driving's a privilege and not a right. And there's some propaganda for you. Traveling is a right, and there's actually a lot of case law on this traveling issue. If any of you are interested, maybe I'll link an article below that's got some of the case law that goes into traveling and driving on public roadways. But there's a lot of rulings that have been made, most of which have been in the past, like 70s and before that, that things like driver's licenses and registrations and insurance are not required for you to take your car on the road. You have to pay for those. You technically own that, and unless you're out there using it for commerce, like you're a taxi driver or a limo driver or something like that, where that's your job, that is for you to use. And the only time you can get stopped is when you're suspected of being involved in a crime. That's at least what a lot of this case law says. Now, that can change with new rulings that happen over time, but the fact of the matter is, when this country was founded, there were a lot of things that we had that were rights that are not rights today. And in fact, there's a lot of people out there that see freedoms as anarchy. And that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me that if the founders were living today and they were to talk to us today as a society, I guarantee you there's a lot of you who would probably think that they're like anarchists or something, because that's probably what they sound like to a lot of people. A society that's not required to pay any tax, a government that gets its power based on the consent of the people, like everybody consents. That changed after the Civil War. You're governed by force, not by consent anymore. And the states don't have the rights to regulate themselves. The Republic's a lot different than what it was intended when the founders created it. There's a lot that has eroded over time, and part of that being our standing army that we've had since the creation of the country, pretty much. And on the 4th of July, the thing that bugs me the most is that so many people celebrate the military. They show a bunch of flags, they show soldiers, they show jets, they show tanks and convoys of military, and they're like, yeah, America, freedom, right? That's like us celebrating tyranny on the day it's a day to celebrate freedom, and we're celebrating the force that is going to be tyrannical towards us. And it's just crazy to me, because what happened during the revolution was the citizens rebelled against the military. They rebelled against their government. It was the citizens' ability to fight the government that made us free. Those people that fought for us, they created a pseudo-military, basically. They created a military, but they were colonists. They were regular people. They were lawyers and doctors and farmers and whatever else that took up arms and organized and fought their own government. So on the 4th of July, we shouldn't be celebrating our military. Our military serves our government. They do the thing that is opposite of the American values. American values are people that are non-government, that have the ability to fight, that have the freedom to be independent, regulate themselves, have their own off-grid farm, ranch, and have enough arms and ammo and organization and armor and just anything the military has, citizens having that thing where the citizens have the power to overthrow their own government or any other government that would be tyrannical towards them. That's what the 4th is about. That's what that freedom is about. Us celebrating freedom and what happened during the founding of this country is really about the citizens' ability to fight their own government. I mean, think about that. Things were a bit different at that time, but the military, the British government, was essentially the law enforcement in the colonies. They were the military, they were the law enforcement, and it was the colonists who stood up and fought them. It wasn't them saying, back the blue and having British flags with a blue line through them. That to me is it's so contradictory. It's hypocritical. It doesn't make any sense to me, because at the core issue here is, who does the government serve? The government serves the government. The military serves the politicians. The government's supposed to be subservient to us, but ultimately we are subservient to them. They have the authority to kick us out of their hearings. They have the authority to regulate us. We no longer have any practical, everyday authority we exercise on them. When's the last time any of you have walked in and fired somebody from the government? They'll laugh at you. They don't have to treat you nicely even. They can be rude to you and keep their job. They can do things that just at utter disregard, and we're at their mercy. They get elected and we say, oh crap, 6 months later, and everybody says we disapprove this person, we don't want them in office. Doesn't matter. They're your ruler right now. They're the person in charge of this thing, and you can't get rid of them. Unless, of course, you go through one of these, BS recalls, which, I haven't had faith in the voting system for a long time in our country. So I personally don't participate in any of that because I don't think any of it's actually legitimate. But when was the last time any of you gave orders to our military? Probably never. They take orders from politicians, and they are sworn to them. They may say, hey, I'm sworn to defend the Constitution, all this stuff, but if you look at the actual laws and practical experience, what actually happens, it is illegal for them to disobey orders from a superior and punishable by death. So they have to follow these orders and a lot of times. So they're following orders from superiors that take orders from politicians. So our military isn't serving our people. They're serving politicians and their interests, their private interests, which are politicians. Who do they serve? They serve whoever's filling their pockets. So the military is not here for our best interest, and even the police is not here for our best interest. This is coming from a former cop. Personally, I am there. I am here right now to serve other people. But in that position, the function that I had before in that position, largely, I was there to serve the city. When I say the city, it wasn't the people within that city, it was the government within that city. That's why all these things got regulated, and I was required to go out and, hey, you don't have to protect anybody, but you are required to go enforce things where we can charge people money, and that money goes into a fund for our city. And we've seen this again and again and again, and there was just a ruling, I want to say this week, that had to do with the school shooting in Florida, and that officer not going into the school to protect those kids. It was utter cowardice, and it was sinful. Somebody who knows the right thing to do and doesn't do it, that is sin to them. It's in the Bible. I'll try to link the verse here for you so that you have it. But if you know the right thing to do, you have a duty to do that thing if you're aware of it, and that was the right thing to do in that situation, is to preserve the innocent life, because you have a right to life. And so preserving the innocent life was the right thing to do, and he didn't do it. And it was ruled that he's basically without fault because our law doesn't require the police to protect us. So that should be very eye-opening for you guys. They say give up your guns because the police are here to protect you. You don't need them. There is a function built into society called police that can protect you. But then when you go into court, that propaganda doesn't matter. The stuff I just told you, that's stuff the media will tell you. That's propaganda. That's stuff society will tell you. But it's not true. In fact, the court has ruled for the third or fourth time now that the police have no obligation to protect the public. They have an obligation to enforce the policies the politicians put forth. They have an obligation to do that. So their job is to go out there and to charge people with things, to go out there and make money, basically. Charge people with things and make money and enforce the laws. Now, that's not right. Following orders without question is not right, because even in examples we've seen in the Bible where people were slaves, take Joshua, for example, a slave in Egypt, being a good slave to his master, who was good to him also in return, was a good thing because he was honoring God by doing that. By treating his master that way and being good to his master, he was honoring God. It was a way for him to honor God. But the minute his master or his master's wife asked him to do something or ordered him to do something, saying, I'm your master, you are my slave, you are to do this, and that thing was sinful, he said no. And he paid for it. He went to prison for it. But he said no, and that was his moral duty. And as a law enforcement officer, I've done this before, and I would encourage you, if you are a cop and you're listening to this, that you need to be the one that is responsible for your own actions. You can't say, oh, I'm not liable for later, because that's actually not true. You will be the one who is liable in court. I promise you that. The dogma that's passed around that if you're given an order, you're not liable for carrying it out, you are the one that is at fault for that. And we've even seen Jesus talk about this in the Bible too. You are the one that is at fault. And so it's your responsibility. If you're enforcing something or doing something, that is your responsibility. And we need to have that mindset that is a check and balance from the executive branch, that you can refuse to do something and you have a duty to refuse to do something when it is immoral and it is wrong. So I don't want to go too much farther into the government corruption, tyranny rabbit hole, but we look at all this stuff from the fourth, and I see so many people celebrating our government and not celebrating the citizens. They're like looking up to the government, looking up to these soldiers. Oh, look how great they are, all they've done for us. It's us to serve them, and it's a day for us to serve them. And it's not supposed to be like that. It should be a day that we celebrate the citizens' ability to take a stand and to fight tyrannical governments. A citizen's capability. It should be citizens out there that have nothing to do with the government showing off guns and equipment and things like that. That's what should be getting celebrated, not military capability. Our founders would be so frightened. This is Ben Franklin's worst nightmare, to have a government like ours is today. So the fact that we celebrate it on the 4th is just, it's mind-boggling to me, to be frank. But I'll tell you some other things we don't do on the 4th, and we don't do any day for that matter. I don't fly an American flag. And it's not because I hate the country or I hate the flag or anything like that. But I don't go out of my way to fly an American flag and make a point to that to anybody. And the reason is, so many of these same people allow government and nationalism to be their idol. Now, I want to back up for just a minute, before I get into this and talk about two different paths here. The founders, they focused on God and they focused on the rights of the individual. Communists and socialists and authoritarians and whatever other types of tyranny, they're all really the same thing. There's, fascism is not on the right and communism is not on the left. You have a political scale that goes from monarchy, oligarchy, republic, anarchy. That's basically the scale, right? So anarchy is one end and a totalitarian monarchy is on the other end. But communists, fascists, socialists, all of them, they want to create societies where everybody is obedient to the government. Government is their god. Government is their idol. They worship the government. They support the government. You don't question the government. You celebrate the government. You honor the government. Their picture goes everywhere. Politicians everywhere. Quotes from presidents. All of that stuff everywhere. And you recite you swear an oath, and you do whatever their agenda is. For Mao, it was his little red book, right? And you're going to carry those things out, and you're indoctrinated into this. Well, all of those things have been repackaged into our own society, and we even had a communist in our country come up with an oath that Americans and any other country can adopt in order to create this nationalism movement. He wanted to create loyalists in our country that wouldn't question our government and wouldn't question politicians and would honor them and follow them and would never rebel against them. He wanted to create a society that had just undying support for their own government. And so he came up with this oath. And as far as I know, the United States is the only government that officially made it part of its system, if you would, and officially adopted it. And they rewrote a little bit of it to make it specific to the United States, but it is the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance was created by a communist who wanted to create an obedient society that essentially idolized government. And so when people are like, the most American thing you can do is have a school classroom with the flag in the corner there of the room and the children standing up and swearing an oath to their government every morning. That is out of the communist textbook. That is un-American. That is out of the communist textbook. That is exactly what they do in every communist regime. That is what, and they force indoctrinate with political indoctrination. All of these countries, they do that. They force children into maybe camps or a school or whatever. That's public education in the United States in the 1900s when it was created by the Rockefellers and their foundation. They said they wanted a nation of obedient workers, not a nation of thinkers. They wanted people smart enough to work the machines, but indoctrinated where they would never question their government and they would be willing to accept communism as their form of government. Part of the reason my children don't go to public school. That was something created. The American school system with the children standing in the room, in the classroom, where everything looks identical to a prison, and the American flag with them swearing an oath to the politicians in their country and whatever else, and no Bibles anymore, by the way. Those got taken out in the 60s. All of this different stuff, that's all a push for socialism and communism to get adopted in the United States. So you can kind of see, like, talking about all this stuff, the fourth is a very difficult thing for me because I have both of these sides where I know there's a lot of good people who cherish the good things they've been able to have in their life, but they don't realize that the way they're celebrating the fourth is by practicing communism, basically, is by practicing communism and celebrating our enemy. Even the Bible talks about this, is that our battle is not a battle of flesh and blood, it's a battle with principalities, it's a battle with the evil powers of the world. If you look at some of those words, what they mean the authorities of the world, the governments of the world. That's our battle right there. It's a battle of principles, a battle of ideology with the governments of the world. And the Bible even mentions that. And it's absolutely insane that we celebrate the fourth this way. But I don't want this to be a negative video. This is really an educational and eye-opening video. I'm not trying to like pointing my finger right now, but I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody and accuse anybody of doing anything or call anybody idiots. I'm trying to educate out there. I'm trying to share this stuff with you guys so that you guys know these things and you guys can have your eyes open and be like, I didn't realize that. And maybe you'll make a change. And here are ways that we celebrate. The first, open your Bible, read your Bible, and put your faith in Jesus Christ and put your faith in Yeshua. He is the only one and the only authority, and his law is the only law of the land. That is the law you talk about when you talk about obeying the law of the land. That is his law. You got to know his commandments, his law, and all of that. But ultimately, he's the only one worthy of our sworn oath, our loyalty. And he is the only one I celebrate. And the reason I don't put all this American stuff, and I used to be that way. I'd wear American flag t-shirt and, all of that stuff and go around with fireworks and celebrating this country like it is nobody's business. But that was an idol. That was a false idol for me. And don't let the military, if you were in the military, a lot of times military guys, they let the military and military service become an idol for them. Don't let it be an idol. Nothing comes first except for God. Period. That is it. And our country does not need another politician. What our country needs is faith in God and a return to God's laws, honoring God's laws, and he will protect us and provide for us. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing that we do to celebrate our independence is we do things on our own. We do things on our own and we don't ask permission for them. And we become more educated and more responsible. Freedom is predicated on the idea of responsibility. So this morning, my son and daughter cooked breakfast. And that is something that they're learning. They're little kids right now. They're just learning this stuff. But they did that on their own. And I just kind of watched them do it. And I let them make mistakes. And it's okay because today we didn't go out and have somebody else serve us as convenience and have to pay for that. We celebrated our own capability. And that's what another thing we do. A third thing, we celebrate our own capability that we have in our household. We educate here. We do our own medicine here. We're in a rental home right now as we're moving into another place, but usually we have a garden and we celebrate having our own food, being thankful to God that we're able to have our own food, our own livestock, our own education here, that we have our family and we have everything that we need right now. We're provided for. That is what we're celebrating. We're celebrating being provided for and being able to take responsibility for our own well-being ourselves. And we reflect on what those people did, those founders did when they sacrificed. Some of those guys were very young. A lot of people don't know this, but many of the signers of the Declaration were like in their 20s. And I want to say some of them were in their teens even, but some of them are in their 20s. They're very young people, but a lot of them put their faith in God and they took a stand and they made a sacrifice. They say, what is more important? God, family, country, where do these things fit in? And they put country even before family, and they made sacrifices, including sacrifices their own family's safety, in order to create a new country that they believed in. That amount of sacrifice is not something that you come by easily, and I would have a difficult time walking away from my family, not knowing I would ever see them again, to fight the most powerful government in the world, knowing that we were horribly outgunned. That would be a very difficult thing for me to walk away from them to try to create, a better country and a better future for them by fighting the people that are terrorizing us, that the tyrants, in order to create a more free future for them. So we reflect on the things that they had done and we remember these things, and it's up to us to take responsibility. And that's the last thing I want to say. I mentioned that freedom is predicated on the idea of responsibility. That means you have the responsibility and hopefully the ability to actually take care of yourself. That means you're responsible for yourself. Nobody else is responsible. The cops aren't responsible for your safety. Doctor's not responsible for your health. The pastor is not responsible for your moral well-being. It is your responsibility to do all of these things in your life. You need to go out and take responsibility for all of these things and actually practice all of them. You need to be the one to study the Bible. You need to be a pastor in your house. As a man in charge of that house, charge of that family, you need to be a pastor to your family. You need to be a moral guide to them. You need to be the one that teaches them right and wrong and educates them. You need to be the one that provides and protects and all of these things. You are responsible. Don't put that on anybody else. It doesn't mean you can't ask for help. Community is a huge thing, and I'm definitely for tight communities and establishing communities. Go to a church and find some like-minded individuals there and collaborate with them and work together and help them with things, and they help you with things, and build together and build these communities together that are just safe havens of independence. That is what we can do. So if you guys watch this far, you guys are all stars, and you guys are super fans of the channel, because I doubt a whole lot of you are going to actually get to the end of this this video. But thank you guys so much. I guess that's all I wanted to say on this Independence Day. I wish you all a great day, and God bless each and every one of you.